My name is Anna Slavec, and I'm a consulting statistician and researcher at the InnoRenew Center of Excellence in Isola. And I'm also an ambassador of an organization called Research Data Alliance for the field of engineering sciences, specifically renewable materials. For me, it's a bit uncomfortable to have this title because myself, I'm not an engineer. My background is in social sciences. I have a PhD in statistics, statistics in social sciences. So for most of my career, I've been working in social sciences. But in my role as a researcher, so we'll introduce the research institution where I work. So in this role, I advise researchers who, not all of them, but many of them are engineers from different fields. So we're a very small research institute. We are about 70 employees, but less than 50 of that are researchers, but they work in various fields. And but we also have researchers in social sciences, researching human health in the built environment. We have researchers doing work on wood modification, renewable materials, composites, sustainable building with renewable materials, ICT renewable materials, and so on. Many of them are from wood science, but they're also from information science, civil engineering. We have psychologists, so researchers from various fields. And we were established 5 years ago through a Horizon teaming project. And in my work, working with different researchers from different fields and advising them about data analysis and also about data management, I found out that there are many differences between different fields in how to manage data, and there are also very specific and different issues. And some of these issues, it's not something that you as a researcher on your own can solve it, so it's really important to have international collaborations and to find people who have similar issues with their data, so how to manage data. And work together with them. And then, as I mentioned, I'm an ambassador of the organization, Research Data Alliance, which is an organization that it's connecting people who are trying to overcome the different social and technical bridges that the different social and technical challenges connected with the research data sharing. So they want to make it easier for researchers to share data. And you can all become members of this organization. So individual membership is for free, while institutional membership, so if your institution becomes a membership, there is some fee. I will speak more about the Research Data Alliance at the end of my talk. Now I would like to make so this is an overview of what are the data sharing challenges in engineering field. So when I was when talking and working with people who work in various engineering sciences, I recognized, so this is a summary of what are the challenges for them. So when you mention to them sharing data, so managing and sharing data, what are the problems they have? So first of all, a lot of research in these fields is done in collaboration with industry, and industry is usually reluctant to share data. So a lot of times, even if they would like to share their data because they need it for application, it's not possible for them to do it because of this restriction. There's this fear of losing competitive advantage. So if they publish the data, somebody else will use it and publish before them. And they also have this fear that their data is going to be misused and misinterpreted. So somebody else is going to use my data and come to the wrong conclusions. And there are also technical challenges. Actually, also these technical challenges are not really technical. They're also more social challenges, because it's about the lack of metadata standards and ontologies. So even if the researchers would like to share the data, there are no common standards developed. So we have some other fields that have developed the standards and ontologies, and we have fields that haven't. So if you don't have this developed, it's difficult to share the data, because even if you share it, others will not be able to use it because it lacks the descriptions needed for other researchers so that they can use it. And another problem is that there are no domain-specific repositories for certain engineering fields. I will speak about domain-specific repositories later. So the issue is that these researchers are then limited to using just general data repositories like Zenodo. Okay, so the fair data principles, the previous speakers have already described them, so I will not go into much detail. So the fair data principles are about making the data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And especially, I think the last one is really important. So to make data reusable, because what is the point of sharing it if then it is not reused? But this is something that in practice it often happens. Even researchers who share the data, their reuse rate is really low. The fair data concept is often mentioned in the context of open science. And I think one issue that I realized talking to researchers is that it's often not really well understood what it means for data to be fair. So when I'm trying to address this issue of people fearing to share their data openly, I always talk about the difference between open and fair data, because it's not the same thing. So the data can be open but not fair. It can be fair and not open, and also it can be managed. But not all managed data is fair data. Ideally, it's managed, fair, and open. But if we have to choose, I think it's more important for data to be fair than it is to be open. And this is important because for researchers to understand that when we ask them that they make their data fair, it doesn't necessarily mean that this data is open instantly to everyone. It's just about making this data findable so that other researchers know that this data exists, so at least sharing the metadata. And so the ones who are supposed to use it, so maybe not everyone, but the people you allow access to, so that it is easily accessible to them, that it is interoperable between different programs, and that it's reusable. And to achieve fairness, it's all about this metadata, so that we have a metadata that it's rich, that the data is well described, so that we know a lot about the methodology, how it was collected, in what context. Because just sharing raw data, just uploading a raw data file online doesn't help anyone. So preparing the data in that way that it's fair, it needs an investment into preparing this metadata, that rich metadata that then allows other researchers, but not only others, as also previous speakers have mentioned, it's the primary reuser of your data is yourself. So you're making also your work easier, because a lot of time it happens that you want to reuse your own data. And having managed data, having data that it's fair, it makes your work easier. So in example, if you want to repeat something, you want to publish a paper based on data, and then the review comes back and you need to run some analysis again. If you have well-managed data, fair data, it's a lot less work for you as a researcher to do some things again, to do things differently. So redoing the analysis, it's much easier. And as I mentioned, that doesn't mean completely open. So you have control. So you can. There are sometimes some legal legal reasons why data cannot be open, and that's completely fine. I think it's more important that the data is fair than to make the data completely open. And then to address the technical issues, as I mentioned, there is this choice of repository, so where to share the data. And we have general purpose repositories like Zenodo and Figshare. We have institutional data repositories. In addition to that, we also have publishers who have data repositories. And the advantage of using these general purpose repositories is that it's quite simple, the process, and it's published fast. But the problem is that the metadata scheme is not always very appropriate to the data you have. It's too general. And so it's difficult using these general purpose repositories to make the data really fair, to make it really reusable. So the data is shared, it's made available to others, but there is the issue of reusability because it doesn't have the metadata that it's supposed to have. So data is not reusable without the rich metadata and documentation. And then we have domain-specific repositories, which are field-specific metadata standards. And that way you can make the data more usable for the researchers in your field. But the problem is that not many fields have done that. So there is a lack of repositories. So in some fields, people are there is more collaborations between researchers. In some fields, there is less collaboration, and people do more individual work inside their institution, and then they don't share the data. So this data sits on their computers. And to make them really share the data more, collaborate more, there would be a need to develop these standards and repositories. The disadvantage of using the domain-specific repositories is, of course, that it's time-consuming to prepare and requires specific skills, but in the long run, it saves you time because, as I mentioned before, there are cases when you need to reuse your own data. So having the data shared in a fair way makes the work also easier for you. Here at the bottom, there is a link to a registry of research repositories where you can search for other repositories according to different criteria. So if somebody is interested to find a specific repository, this is a good website to start the search. So then the question is how to improve fair data sharing in engineering, but not only engineering, also in general. I think it's really important to train researchers in data management. So it's not something that comes naturally. Our researchers need to be provided training how to do that. And it's also important that this training is something that it's tailored to their needs. So what kind of data they have in their fields, because different scientific fields have different types of data. It's also important to encourage better methodologies, better quality data, because that way it's then easier also to share the data. So if you encourage better methodologies, then with that also sharing is easier. So as I mentioned, it's important to promote the development of domain-specific metadata standards. And if we want researchers to share, it's also important to offer them additional incentives because it's a lot of work in addition to your regular work as a researcher. So, different institutions should consider how to motivate researchers to do that. And one way also to support researchers is to invest in support staff. So it's something, so especially if you're a PhD student, this is a lot of work that you cannot do on your own. So it's good that universities, research institutes have support staff that is trained in this and that can help and assist researchers when they come across different challenges in data sharing. And there are some examples of good practices from abroad. For example, in the Netherlands, they have data stewards. The technical university there was one of the first to have them, but now also other universities in the Netherlands. Just this week, I came across a job ad for Utrecht University, where they want to employ somebody as a data steward. And then in the UK, at the University of Cambridge, they have data champions. So it's also kind of data stewards, but they are not employed, so they are more volunteers. And also, when I was in Finland, I heard that they also have this kind of profile, but they don't call them data stewards, they call them data agents. There are various courses for support staff, how to learn. For example, myself, I took a course organized by CoData and Research Data Alliance. It was a pilot summer school for research data science for data stewards. So this is a course I took, but there now I see every year there is more and more choice, because more and more institutions are investing in that. Yeah, so as I mentioned, Research Data Alliance to help the different fields to develop data management. They created a group of ambassadors for different fields. Specifically for engineering, we are 3 ambassadors, and inside engineering for different subfields. So in my case, it's materials. And then we have an ambassador who is more in the field of energy, and an ambassador for high energy physics. Inside Research Data Alliance, there are also working groups several working groups that are relevant for engineers. Here I'm listing them. And these working groups are working together to develop the methodologies for their fields. They're organizing events, so webinars, and so on. So they are doing different things with this aim to make the sharing of research data easier for researchers. And then, so in addition to these domain groups inside Research Data Alliance, we also have in Europe different nodes. So different countries in Europe have their node in Research Data Alliance. And also in Slovenia, we have, and here there are the contact persons. So if you're interested to participate in Research Data Alliance, these are the people to contact. So there is this group based on this in the Slovenian Social Science Data Archive that are like the entry point for researchers in Slovenia to participate in Research Data Alliance. But also we thought that you can join and become a member of Research Data Alliance. So how does the work happen? So lately, in the last 2 years, it was mostly online. But this year they will also have a live meeting. So I think it's possible to participate so live in Korea or online. It will take place in June. And usually they had to meet 2 plenaries per year. So maybe there will be also one, there is maybe also one planned for the second half of the year. So that was all about my presentation. This is a picture of the building of my institute, which is the highest wooden building in Slovenia. It was constructed last year, and there was an opening at the beginning of the year. Okay, so that was all from me, and I will be happy to respond to questions.